Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be talking all about the TOEFL exam.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, so if you are thinking about studying abroad or maybe you need it for some kind of certification, we are going to give you some tips to help you prepare.
Definitely.
So to help us with this deep dive, we have excerpts from two different guides. One is called TOEFL Tips, How to Score High on Your English Proficiency Test,
Right.
and the other is TOEFL IBT, a comprehensive study guide and practice.
Excellent resources.
Yeah, and I actually remember when I was prepping for this exam, I was super overwhelmed. So hopefully this will help you feel a little bit more prepared.
Yeah, and a lot of people think that the TOEFL is just about like how good your English is, but it's really not.
Right.
It's more about strategy, like understanding how the test works.
Totally. And there are so many little tricks and tips that you can learn that will help you so much. And one thing I really struggled with was the listening section.
Oh yeah.
Especially those lectures, they can be really hard. I would try to write down everything the speaker was saying and I would just get totally lost.
Yeah, one of the most valuable things that I learned was this concept of active listening.
Active listening.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed like when a lecturer is talking, how they use certain words to signal a change in like direction or emphasis?
Give me an example.
Okay, so like imagine a lecturer saying, however recent studies challenge this view.
Okay.
That however is a big clue
Yeah.
that there's a shift in the argument and you need to like pay attention to what's coming next. That's
Oh.
active listening. So you're not just hearing the words, but you're really trying to understand what the speaker is trying to get across.
Okay, that makes total sense. So it's like you're listening for these cues to kind of map out the lecture in your head.
Exactly. And then instead of trying to like frantically write everything down, you can just focus on capturing the key points and the transitions.
I love that. Okay, so let's back up for a second and just talk about why is the TOEFL so important? I mean, I know it's for people who want to study abroad or get certain certifications, but what makes it such a big deal?
Well, think about it, like over 11,000 institutions around the world accept TOEFL scores.
Wow.
So it's like the gold standard for showing, English proficiency, especially in like academic settings.
So it's not just hey, I can speak English. It's proving that you can handle university level courses.
Exactly. Universities want to know that you can understand complex lectures, you can keep up with the readings, and participate in discussions.
Got it. Wow. Okay, so how does the TOEFL actually measure all that? I know there are different sections, but how does it all come together?
So the TOEFL is divided into 4 sections: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. And each one is designed to assess different aspects of your English proficiency.
Okay, so let's break down each section then, starting with reading.
Sure.
What are some strategies that can help people approach those really dense academic texts? I know skimming and scanning is helpful, but is there anything else?
Definitely one thing that was really helpful for me was understanding the structure of the passages.
You mean they have an introduction and body paragraphs and an inclusion?
Exactly. And recognizing that structure helps you anticipate what's coming and locate information more quickly.
Oh, so the main idea is usually stated right up front in the introduction.
Exactly. So that's what you want to focus your attention first.
So skimming the intro and conclusion can kind of give you a good overview before you dive into the details.
Exactly. And then when you're looking for specific details, that's when scanning comes into play.
Right, and you can quickly scan those body paragraphs for keywords.
Right.
Okay, what about vocabulary? I know that can be a huge challenge, especially with those academic texts.
Absolutely. Building a strong vocabulary is essential for the reading section. And what I found really helpful was, analyzing those root words.
Oh, yeah.
Recognizing those common prefixes and suffixes, it can really unlock the meaning of unfamiliar words.
Like cracking a code.
Right, and then context clues.
Yeah.
A lot of times the sentences around that word that you don't know can give you hints.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I'm starting to see how all of these strategies can really make a difference in tackling the tough reading passages. What about paraphrasing? I know one of the sources mentioned that. How does that come in handy?
Well, paraphrasing is a fantastic skill to develop for the TOEFL, especially for the reading section.
How so?
It forces you to actively engage with the text and really understand what you're reading.
So instead of just passively reading, you're putting it into your own words, which helps with comprehension.
Exactly. And when you're able to paraphrase effectively, it also helps you answer those synthesis questions where you have to summarize or combine information from different parts of the passage.
Oh, those are the worst.
Yeah.
It's like they're testing your ability to see the big picture.
Yes, and paraphrasing helps you do that.
Okay, great. So we've covered some great strategies for the reading section. Now let's move on to the listening section.
Okay.
We talked about active listening earlier, but what else can someone do to ace this part of the exam?
Taking good notes is really crucial for the listening section.
Right, because you can't go back and re-listen.
Exactly.
So your notes become your lifeline.
Yes, they're like your cheat sheet for answering those questions.
But note-taking can be tough when you're trying to keep up with a fast-paced lecture.
It is. That's why it's important to develop a system that works for you.
Right.
Like some people use abbreviations or bullet points or even mind maps.
Yeah, I remember trying all these different methods until I found one that kind of worked for me. It's like you're creating a visual representation of the lecture.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the more efficient you'll become at capturing that key information.
Okay, so we've got active listening and note-taking down. Anything else?
One thing that can help is familiarizing yourself with different English accents,
Oh, that's a good point.
because the TOEFL uses recording from speakers from all over the world.
Right.
So it's helpful to get used to hearing those different pronunciations and intonations.
That's true. So, like, listening to podcasts or watching movies with different accents could be good practice.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, so we've covered reading and listening. Now let's move on to the section that I think makes a lot of people nervous. Speaking.
Ah, yes, the dreaded speaking section.
I remember getting like butterflies in my stomach just thinking about having to talk into a microphone.
I know, but it's not as scary as it seems once you understand the format and, have some strategies.
Okay, so break it down for us. What does the speaking section actually involve?
So in the speaking section, you'll have 6 tasks that require you to respond to prompts, and some involve reading a short passage and then speaking about it. Others require you to listen to a conversation or a lecture and then summarize it or give your opinion.
So it's all about like demonstrating your ability to speak fluently and coherently on different topics.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to prepare is to practice, practice, practice.
Okay.
Record yourself speaking, listen back to it, and identify areas where you can improve.
That's a great tip. I think a lot of times we don't realize how we sound until we hear ourselves.
And remember, it's not about sounding perfect. It's about communicating your ideas clearly.
Right, and what about the nerves? I mean, I remember feeling so self-conscious during my practice sessions.
I understand it's normal to feel nervous.
Yeah.
What really helped me was just focusing on the task at hand rather than my own anxiety.
Right.
So engage with the prompt, think about what you want to say, and let your ideas flow.
It's like tricking your brain.
Yeah, and remember, the examiners are not looking for perfection. They just want to see that you can communicate effectively in English.
So focus on the message, not the nerves.
Right, and one last tip for the speaking section is pay attention to your pacing.
Oh,
Because it's easy to rush when you're nervous,
yeah.
but speaking clearly at a moderate pace will help the examiners understand you better.
That's a good point. It's all about finding that balance between clarity and fluency.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got reading, we've got listening, we've got speaking. That leaves us with our final section. Writing.
Right, and the writing section is all about showing off your ability to, construct those well-organized and grammatically correct essays in response to those prompts.
So how is the write-in section different from the speaking section? I mean, they both involve communicating ideas, but what are the specific challenges with writing on the TOEFL?
Well, speaking requires you to be fluent and spontaneous, right? But writing gives you more time to plan and structure your thoughts.
Yeah.
However, it also demands more precision in your grammar and vocabulary.
So it's like a different kind of pressure. It's not about thinking on your feet, but it's about crafting a well-written argument.
Exactly. And the writing section has 2 tasks. The first one is the integrated writing task, and that involves reading a passage and then listening to a lecture that presents a contrasting viewpoint.
Okay.
And your job is to summarize the lecture and explain how it relates to the reading.
So it's kind of like a mini research paper.
Yes, you're showing that you can analyze and compare information from those 2 sources.
And what about the second writing task?
The second one is the independent writing task, and that one gives you a prompt and asks you to express your own opinion or share a personal experience.
Oh, so it's more about showcasing your ability to like create a clear argument and support it?
Exactly. You're writing a persuasive essay.
Got it. So for both writing tasks, structure and clarity are key, but what are some specific tips for like mastering the writing section? I know grammar and vocabulary are important, but is there anything else that can help someone stand out?
One thing that really helped me was planning my essays before I started writing.
Yeah.
Taking a few minutes to brainstorm and outline my main points just ensured that my essays were well organized.
It's like creating a roadmap for your essay.
Exactly. And when you have a clear outline, it's much easier to stay focused.
That's something I struggle with. I always kind of go off on tangents.
Outlining can help with that.
Okay, so planning is crucial. What about time management? I feel like it would be easy to lose track of time when you're writing.
Yes, time management is essential for the writing section. You want to make sure you have enough time for planning, writing, and revising.
So it's not just about writing quickly, it's about being strategic.
Exactly.
Okay, great advice. So we've covered all 4 sections of the TOEFL: reading, listening, speaking, and writing.
Yes, we have.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, are there any overarching takeaways or strategies that apply to all sections of the exam?
Hmm. I think the biggest takeaway is that the TOEFL is not just about demonstrating your knowledge of English grammar and vocabulary.
Right.
It's about being able to use English effectively in academic settings.
So it's about thinking like a student.
Exactly. Imagine yourself in a university lecture hall or working on a research paper. The skills that you need to succeed in those situations are the same skills that will help you on the TOEFL.
That's a great way to think about it. It's not about memorizing rules, it's about developing those practical skills.
Exactly. And as you prepare for the TOEFL, remember that every skill you develop, every strategy you learn is an investment in your future.
That's such a good point. It's not just about passing an exam, it's about unlocking all these opportunities.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork and explored the key strategies for each section of the TOEFL.
Right.
And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve into even more specific tips and techniques to help you take your TOEFL preparation to the next level.
Sounds good.
So stay tuned because we've got a lot more to cover. We'll be back soon with even more insights and strategies for success on the TOEFL.
See you then.
Welcome back to our TOEFL deep dive. We just finished kind of like breaking down each section of the exam, and now I'm excited to like actually get into like how to prepare for it. What are some of the most common mistakes you see people making when they first start studying for the TOEFL?
I think one of the biggest mistakes is just diving in without a plan.
Hey,
It's like setting off on a road trip without a map.
yeah,
You might end up somewhere, but it might not be where you wanted to go.
that's so true. I remember when I first started prepping, I was just so overwhelmed by all the resources and materials. I was like jumping from one practice test to another without any real direction.
Yeah, in both of our sources, TOEFL Tips, How to Score High on Your English Proficiency Test, and TOEFL IBT, a comprehensive study guide and practice, they really emphasize the importance of having a structured study plan.
Okay, so what does a good study plan look like? What are some of the things that we should be thinking about?
Well, first, you need to be realistic about your goals and your timeline. So figure out what your target score is, like check the requirements for the universities or programs that you're interested in, and then kind of work backward from there.
That's a good point. It's like setting a deadline for yourself. But how do you actually like break down the study process into manageable chunks? I'm such a procrastinator, so I need all the help I can get.
I hear you. Break down your study goals into smaller weekly or even daily tasks. So instead of thinking I need to improve my vocabulary, think I'm going to learn 10 new words every day this week.
Okay, yeah, that feels much less daunting when you break it down like that.
Right. And that's where our sources come in handy. They offer some fantastic tips on creating a study schedule that works for your individual needs and learning style.
Awesome. What about resources? There are so many books, websites, apps out there. It's like information overload.
It can be. That's why it's important to be selective about the resources you use, TOEFL IBT. A comprehensive study guide and practice actually recommends starting with the official guide to the TOEFL test.
That makes sense. If you're going to prep for the TOEFL, you might as well learn from the people who create the test.
Right. And it's packed with authentic practice questions and explanations, so you can really get a feel for what to expect on exam day.
TOEFL tips, how to score high on your English proficiency test, also mentions the value of incorporating like a variety of resources into your study plan.
Exactly. Mixing things up can help you stay engaged and prevent burnout. So you might use online platforms like Magoosh or Kaplan for interactive exercises, and then work through practice tests in a TOEFL prep book. And maybe even join online study groups, for extra support and motivation.
Oh, I love that connecting with other people who are going through the same thing can be so helpful. It's like having a built-in support system.
Exactly. And sometimes just venting your frustrations or sharing tips with others can make the whole process feel less overwhelming.
Speaking of overwhelming, let's talk about test anxiety.
Oh, yeah?
I know I'm not the only one who gets those pre-test jitters.
Test anxiety is completely normal, especially for a high-stakes exam like the TOEFL. But the good news is that there are proven techniques that you can use to manage those nerves and prevent them from impacting your performance.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some tips that you found helpful?
One of the most effective techniques is simulating test conditions during your practice sessions. So set a timer, find a quiet space, and try to replicate the actual test environment as closely as possible.
That's a good idea. It's like training your brain to perform under pressure. But what about when the anxiety starts to creep in during the actual test? What are some in-the-moment coping mechanisms?
Deep breathing exercises can be a lifesaver.
Oh, yeah?
If you start to feel overwhelmed, just take a few slow, deep breaths to calm your nervous system.
I've also heard that visualization can be helpful, like picturing yourself successfully completing the exam and feeling confident.
Visualization is powerful.
Yeah.
It can trick your brain into believing that it's already experienced success, which can boost your confidence and reduce that anxiety.
I love that. Okay, those are all great practical tips. It's so helpful to have those strategies to combat those test day nerves. What about a positive mindset?
Mindset is everything.
Yeah.
Remind yourself that you've prepared well and just focus on the progress that you've made. One of our sources, TOEFL Tips, How to Score High on Your English Proficiency Test, talks about the importance of celebrating your small wins along the way.
Yeah, that's so important. It's easy to get caught up in what you still need to learn, but acknowledging your accomplishments, no matter how small, can really help you stay motivated.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about study plans, resources, anxiety management. Now let's talk about test day strategies. What are some things that people can do to maximize their performance during those precious few hours? Well, first and foremost, familiarize yourself with the format of the exam. You don't want any surprises on test day. So make sure you know how many sections there are, how much time you have for each section, and the types of questions you'll be asked, TOEFL, IBT. A comprehensive study guiding practice really emphasizes reading the instructions carefully for each section, even if you think you already know what to do.
That's a good point. Sometimes those little details can really trip you up if you're not paying attention.
Exactly. And then time management is crucial on the TOEFL, so practice pacing yourself during your practice tests so you can get a feel for how long you can spend on each question.
It's like finding your rhythm.
Right? And during the exam, make sure you keep it on the clock. If you're struggling with a question, don't be afraid to skip it and come back to it later.
Oh, that's good advice. I used to get so hung up on trying to answer every question perfectly, even if it meant like sacrificing time on other sections.
Yeah, it's tempting to want to be a perfectionist, but on a timed exam like the TOEFL, sometimes you need to be strategic.
That's true. It's about maximizing your overall score, not getting every single question right.
Exactly. And don't forget about those breaks. Use them to stretch, hydrate, clear your mind. A few minutes of downtime can really help you reset for the next section.
Okay, so we've talked about preparing for the TOEFL, managing test anxiety, and maximizing your performance on exam day. Now let's zoom out a little bit and talk about the bigger picture. What are some of the benefits that people might experience beyond just like getting a good score?
You know, it's interesting how preparing for the TOEFL can actually have like a ripple effect on other areas of your life. A lot of people find that they develop a greater appreciation for language and how communication works.
It's like you're unlocking a whole new level of understanding, not just of English, but of how language shapes our thoughts and interactions.
Exactly. It's like you're developing a heightened awareness of the power of words and how they can influence meaning.
And that kind of awareness can be so valuable, not just in academic settings, but in any situation where you need to communicate clearly.
Absolutely. Whether you're writing a professional email, negotiating a business deal, or just having a conversation with a friend, the skills you hone for the TOEFL can really help you communicate more effectively.
It's like the TOEFL is giving you this secret weapon for success.
And I also think it's important to celebrate the journey itself, not just the destination. The process of preparing for the TOEFL can be really rewarding, even if you encounter challenges along the way.
It's like you're constantly pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and discovering new strengths.
Exactly. And every time you overcome a challenge, you build confidence and resilience that will help you in all areas of your life.
So even if the TOEFL journey feels tough at times, remember that you're not just prepping for an exam, you're investing in your own personal and professional growth.
And don't forget the power of community. Connecting with other TOEFL test takers can provide you with so much support, encouragement, even a sense of camaraderie.
Yeah, sharing tips, celebrating successes, and even just venting frustrations with others who understand can make the experience much more enjoyable.
It's like you're all in this together.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this segment. We've talked about creating a study plan, finding effective resources, managing test anxiety, and even considering those long-term benefits of TOEFL preparation.
Right, and in our final segment, we'll wrap up our TOEFL deep dive with some final thoughts and words of encouragement to help you stay motivated on your journey to TOEFL success.
So stay tuned because we've got even more to come. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've spent this episode really getting into like all the different aspects of TOEFL preparation, like understanding the test structure, building a good study plan, and even tackling those pre-test jitters. But now that we're wrapping up, I'm curious, what are some of the maybe like unexpected benefits that people might find as they're going through this process?
Well, it's interesting how preparing for the TOEFL can actually impact other parts of your life. Like a lot of people find that they have a greater appreciation for language and like how communication works.
That's true. I remember feeling like I was just unlocking this whole new level of understanding, not only about English, but about how language really shapes our thoughts and interactions.
Right. It's like you suddenly have this awareness of like the power of words and how they can influence meaning and understanding.
And that's so important, not only for academics, but just like everyday life.
Exactly. Like think about it, whether you're writing a professional email or you're negotiating a business deal or even just having a conversation with a friend. All of those skills that you're honing for the TOEFL can make you a better communicator.
It's like the TOEFL is giving you this secret weapon for success in like all these different areas of your life.
I love that. And, While we're talking about success, I think it's important to celebrate the whole journey, not just the destination.
Oh, for sure.
The process of preparing for the TOEFL could be so rewarding, even if it's challenging at times.
Yeah, it's like you're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and you're discovering these strengths you didn't even know you had.
Exactly. And every time you overcome one of those challenges, every time you master a new skill, it builds your confidence and it makes you more resilient, and that's going to help you in all aspects of your life.
It's so true. So even if preparing for the TOEFL is tough, remember you're not just prepping for the exam itself, you're investing in your personal and professional growth.
And let's not forget about community. That's a big part of it, too. Connecting with other people who are also taking the TOEFL can really provide support and encouragement.
It's like you have this built-in cheer squad,
Yeah, exactly. You can share tips, you can celebrate your successes together, and even just vet your frustrations with people who get it.
It makes the whole experience less isolating and a lot more enjoyable.
Exactly. It's like you're all in it together.
So to wrap things up, what's the one message you want to leave our listeners with as they start this TOEFL preparation journey?
Believe in yourself. I think that's the most important thing. You have the ability to achieve your goals. It's going to take hard work and dedication, but you can do it.
That's such a great reminder. It's so easy to get caught up in self-doubt, but just remembering how far you've come and all the progress you've made can make a huge difference.
Definitely. And don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's from a tutor, a study group, or even a friend. Having that support system is so important.
So to all of our listeners out there who are prepping for the TOEFL, we are cheering you on every step of the way. Remember, this is more than just an exam, it's an investment in your future.
Embrace the challenge, enjoy the journey, and know that you have the power to open up so many new possibilities.
And that's it for our TOEFL deep dive. We hope you found it helpful and informative, and most importantly, we hope you feel empowered.
Remember, you're not just preparing for a test, you're developing a skill set that will help you throughout your life.
So go out there, study hard, practice consistently, and believe in yourself. We know you can do it.
Absolutely, and we're always here to support you.
Until next time, happy studying.